you thought the United Kingdom was all royalty, rolling hills, and cozy little cottages, you're about to meet the side tourists never see. The United Kingdom has always been a place where the past refuses to stay quiet. It lingers in fog-covered streets, creaks through centuries-old floorboards, and whispers through stone walls that have witnessed everything from bloody battles to unexplainable tragedies. Americans love visiting the UK for its history, castles, and legends, but what most travelers don't realize is that some of those legends never died. They're still roaming. Tonight, we're taking a journey far deeper than any travel guide would dare. This isn't the UK you see in brochures. This is the hidden one, the version only locals whisper about, the one where shadows move on their own, and where entire towns brace themselves at nightfall. Each of the four nations, England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland, contains places with histories dark enough to chill even seasoned paranormal investigators. But some states, or as the Brits say, counties, stand out because something there just feels wrong. This video isn't just a list of spooky landmarks. It's a journey across 10 of the most haunted regions in the UK, each with hauntings so intense that even skeptics struggle to explain them. These aren't campfire stories. These are sightings backed by centuries of reports, police logs, eyewitness accounts, and folklore that refuses to go away. In the next 30 minutes, you'll hear about forests that locals avoid even in daylight, castles where tormented spirits still reenact their final moments, and entire towns where footsteps, whispers, and apparitions are normal parts of life. And if you think ghosts are just hazy figures floating around, the UK will introduce you to something much darker. Entities that follow people home, shadows that learn your voice, and spirits that have been known to physically interact with the living. Whether you're watching this late at night or in the safety of daylight, be warned. The deeper we go into the UK, the heavier the atmosphere becomes. These states aren't just homes to hauntings. They are gateways to the past, and sometimes the past reaches back. So grab your headphones, dim the lights if you dare, and get ready for a journey through the 10 most haunted states of the United Kingdom, ranked not by beauty or popularity, but by fear. Let's begin. Number 10, North Yorkshire, England. The moors that breathe. North Yorkshire looks peaceful on the surface. Rolling green hills, stone-built villages, and historic abbeys that make tourists fall in love instantly. But talk to locals long enough, and they'll admit what outsiders don't know. North Yorkshire is home to some of the eeriest areas in all of Britain, and the most feared of them all are the Yorkshire moors. Massive, windswept landscapes where people vanish, compasses fail, and strange lights drift through the fog. Most Americans know the moors from books like The Hound of the Baskervilles, but the real stories are much darker. For centuries, travelers crossing the moors have reported seeing tall, shadowy figures standing still in the distance. Figures that disappear when approached, but reappear moments later behind you. Shepherds sworn to silence talk about hearing screams drifting across hills where no one lives. And hikers often report feeling watched, even when the nearest town is miles away. One of the oldest legends is the Barghest, a monstrous black dog with glowing red eyes said to roam the moors. Unlike normal folklore creatures, the Barghest appears almost exclusively as a warning. Those who see it are said to experience tragedy within days. Policemen patrolling remote roads have reported seeing a creature so large it blocked their headlights. only for it to vanish the moment they stepped out of the car. But the moors aren't the only haunted part of North Yorkshire. The town of Whitby, famous for Dracula's Landing in Bram Stoker's novel, has its own real ghost, the Whitby Abbey nun, often seen gliding along the cliff tops in a dark habit, her face hidden by a veil. She appears silent, unmoving, until she suddenly turns and stares at witnesses. Some say she walks straight off the cliff and disappears. Then there's York, often called the most haunted city in England. Roman soldiers still march through its basements. Children are heard laughing in empty alleyways. And the Treasurer's House is home to one of the most famous ghost sightings in British history. A full legion of Roman soldiers marching through a cellar, witnessed by a man who had never studied Roman uniforms, yet described them perfectly. North Yorkshire is a place where history never dies. It lingers, and sometimes it walks beside you. Visitors often describe a strange pressure in the air, a feeling of being watched, or sudden temperature drops, even indoors. Paranormal researchers say the county's history of battles, executions, and pagan rituals has left scars on the land itself. For many locals, the question isn't whether ghosts exist in North Yorkshire. It's why they seem to be getting more active. Number 9. Lancashire, England, the land of witches, trials, and lingering curses. If North Yorkshire feels eerie, Lancashire feels cursed. Even Americans who visit the UK often hear whispers of Pendle, considered one of the most supernaturally active places in all of Europe. Lancashire is a county with a long, dark memory, one stained by witch trials, violent uprisings, and restless souls who never left. The most infamous story is the Pendle Witches of 1612. It wasn't just a trial, it was a mass hysteria event. 12 people, mostly women, were accused of witchcraft, blamed for deaths, illnesses, livestock failure, and even storms. They were hanged, their bodies buried somewhere around Pendle Hill, and that's where the hauntings began. Hikers today report seeing pale figures standing among the trees, watching silently. Some hear chanting in the wind, like whispered voices carried across the grass. Paranormal investigators say Pendle Hill doesn't just feel haunted, it feels alive. Devices malfunction, batteries drain instantly, and EVP recordings capture voices saying things like, "Still here, let me speak." They lie. One of the most chilling encounters happened to a police officer in the 1980s. He was walking near the hill when he saw what looked like a woman in old clothing standing motionless on the slope. When he called out, she turned, revealing hollow eyes, and then vanished into thin air. He ran back to his car and refused to return alone. But Pendle Hill isn't Lancashire's only dark spot. The county is filled with haunted halls and castles. Samlesbury Hall is home to the ghost of Lady Dorothy Southworth, a woman whose forbidden love ended in murder. Guests report seeing a sorrowful woman gliding through the corridors, sometimes crying softly. Rooms become ice cold as she passes, and doors slam shut even when the hall is empty. And then there's the Lancashire coastline, where fishermen speak of phantom ships appearing during storms. Old wooden vessels lit by lanterns, completely silent, vanishing beneath the waves without sinking. Locals call them drowned fleets, ghosts of ships lost during wartime evacuations and merchant disasters. The town of Lancaster itself still echoes with tragedy. Lancaster Castle was once home to one of Britain's most brutal prisons, where executions were routine. Visitors today hear clanging chains, footsteps following them through the courtyard, and whispers echoing in the dark cells. Even security guards refuse to patrol certain areas alone. Lancashire's hauntings aren't the gentle kind. They carry the weight of fear, injustice, and centuries of suffering. Locals say the land remembers everything, including the blood spilled on it. When Americans travel to the UK looking for real haunted history, Lancashire isn't just recommended, it's warned about. Here, the past doesn't just haunt you, it touches you. Number 8, Warwickshire, England. Shakespeare's home and England's darkest castles. When Americans think of Warwickshire, they picture Shakespeare's birthplace, Tudor buildings, and classic English charm. But beneath that charm lies some of the darkest, most violent hauntings in the UK, because Warwickshire is home to castles soaked in blood and spirits that refuse to rest. The most infamous is Warwick Castle, a towering medieval fortress with over 1,100 years of history. It has witnessed battles, plagues, torture, and political executions. People visiting the castle often report the same thing, the sense that someone is walking right behind them. Tour guides warn that certain rooms, especially the dungeon, should not be entered alone. Visitors have fainted after feeling sudden pressure around their necks, and some leave in tears without knowing why. One of the most terrifying ghosts is Sir Fulk Greville, a poet and nobleman murdered by his own servant. He's said to roam the castle's tower, appearing as a smoky figure with a deep stab wound to the torso. People claim to feel overwhelming dread when they enter his study, and cameras frequently malfunction near the tower. Just a short distance away lies Kenilworth Castle, once considered one of the greatest castles in England, but its ruins are far from silent. Legend says the spirit of Elizabethan noblewoman Amy Robsart appears near the staircase where she died under suspicious circumstances. Her death was ruled an accident, but many believe she was murdered, and her ghost seems determined to confirm it. Witnesses describe a pale woman in a Tudor gown, wandering the halls, disappearing when approached. But Warwickshire's hauntings aren't limited to castles. The small town of Stratford-upon-Avon, Shakespeare's hometown, has its own terrifying spots. The Shakespeare Hotel is notorious for rooms that suddenly go freezing cold, doors that unlock themselves at night, and a female spirit known simply as the Grey Lady. She's been seen standing by bedsides, staring at sleeping guests. One American couple reported waking to see her standing at the foot of their bed, her long dress trailing on the floor. She didn't move, didn't blink, and when they turned on the lamp, she vanished. But the curtains continued swaying, as if someone had been standing directly in front of them. Another chilling location is the Eddington Park Hotel, widely considered one of the most haunted hotels in Britain. Its Victorian architecture is stunning, but its interior is filled with reports of floating apparitions, disembodied voices, and ghostly children playing in empty halls. A famous guest once wrote that he heard children laughing outside his room all night, only to learn the next morning that no children were staying in the hotel. Warwickshire may appear calm, peaceful, even romantic, but beneath the surface, its history is violent, and the spirits tied to its tragedies have no intention of being forgotten. Visitors often say the same thing after leaving. The buildings are beautiful, but something there feels wrong. Warwickshire isn't just haunted by history. It's haunted by the people who never truly left it. Number 7, Cornwall, England. Coastlines of ghosts, shipwrecks, and the dead who never returned. Cornwall is one of the most mysterious corners of the UK. Rugged cliffs, wild oceans, ancient stone circles, and villages that look untouched by time. But beneath the postcard beauty lies a county shaped by tragedy. Shipwrecks, mining disasters, pagan rituals, and centuries of isolation have turned Cornwall into one of the most paranormally active states in the United Kingdom. At night, Cornwall feels different. The wind doesn't just blow, it calls. Locals say the ocean carries voices. Fishermen claim that when the sea is calm, you may hear the final echoes of sailors who never made it home. The most haunted place in Cornwall is Jamaica Inn, a remote coaching inn built in 1750 and famous for its smuggler history. It served as a hideout for criminals who brought stolen goods ashore in the dead of night. Many of them didn't live long enough to spend their profits. Visitors today report hearing boots stomping through the halls, doors jerking open violently, and horses galloping outside in the courtyard, even when it's completely empty. Bartenders say glasses sometimes lift off the shelf and smash themselves without warning. One room in particular, Room 5, is so active that staff often refuse to clean it alone. One guest described waking up to see a dark figure standing in the corner. It didn't move, didn't breathe. It simply stood there. When the guest tried to turn on the lamp, it flickered wildly, and the figure disappeared. The next morning, the staff simply nodded and said, "Yes, that happens here." Then there's the Cornish coast, known as the graveyard of ships. Hundreds of vessels have been swallowed by the ocean over the centuries. People walking along the cliffs during storms have reported seeing ghostly ships illuminated by lightning, old wooden vessels sailing silently before vanishing into the darkness. A well-documented haunting centers around the ghost of the wreckers, locals who lured ships ashore using lanterns to simulate safe harbors, causing them to crash on the rocks. After robbing the wreckage, they killed survivors to avoid being identified. Some say their screams still echo along the cliffs during bad weather. Cornwall also holds one of Britain's most unsettling legends, the Beast of Bodmin Moor, a massive phantom black cat seen roaming the desolate moorland. Witnesses describe it as larger than a leopard, with glowing eyes that catch the moonlight. Farmers report finding livestock mutilated in ways no normal animal could achieve. And night travelers sometimes see two glowing orbs in the darkness, silent, watching, waiting. Cornwall is a place where myths and hauntings merge seamlessly. Ghosts here aren't tied to castles. They're tied to the land, the sea, and generations of loss. It's the kind of place that stays with you long after you leave. And sometimes you feel like something came home with you. Number 6, Gloucestershire, England. Britain's forest of fear and the ghosts that hunt, not haunt. If Cornwall is wild and mystical, Gloucestershire is dark and predatory. This state contains some of the most unsettling paranormal hotspots in all of Britain. Places where spirits don't just appear, they interact, sometimes violently. At the heart of Gloucestershire is the Forest of Dean, a place Americans often compare to the Appalachian Woods. Beautiful by day, but unforgiving by night. The forest is over 110 square kilometers of dense woodland, abandoned mines, ancient caves, and pathways where sunlight can barely reach. There's one rule locals follow: never walk the Forest of Dean alone at night. People report hearing footsteps that match their pace, whistles echoing through the trees, and strange lights weaving between the branches. Some believe these lights are spirits of miners who died in collapses. Others think they're something older, pre-Christian, pagan entities tied to the land. One of the most chilling encounters happened to a pair of hikers in the early 2000s. While walking a trail at dusk, they saw a tall, thin figure standing perfectly still in the distance. Thinking it was another hiker, they called out, but the figure didn't respond. Instead, it slowly stepped backward and vanished behind a tree. When they approached the spot, there was no one there, not even footprints. But the forest isn't Gloucestershire's only nightmare. Nearby sits Prestbury, known as the most haunted village in England. Its streets look calm and picture-perfect, but its paranormal activity is so intense that even ghost skeptics refuse to deny it. Prestbury is famous for its Black Abbot, a hooded monk who appears as a full-body apparition, clear, detailed, and unmistakably human. People have seen him walking through the churchyard, passing through walls, and vanishing around corners. One woman captured him on camera in the 1990s, a tall figure in dark robes gliding across the road in broad daylight. Experts still can't explain it. Then there's the ancient Ram Inn, widely considered the most terrifying building in the UK. Built in 1145, the inn sits on top of pagan burial grounds and an old human sacrifice site. Ghost hunters describe the energy as predatory. Visitors report being pushed, scratched, and even dragged across the floor by unseen forces. One room, the witch's room, is said to contain the spirit of a woman burned alive for witchcraft. People sleeping there often wake up choking or unable to move. The owner, before he passed, claimed he'd been physically attacked by demons inside the house. And recordings from inside the inn include screams, growls, and whispered phrases telling people to get out. Gloucestershire is different from other haunted states because the spirits here aren't just trapped. They're active. They hunt, stalk, follow, and feed on fear. And anyone who visits the Forest of Dean, the Ram Inn, or Prestbury says the same thing afterward. I felt like something wanted me to leave or stay forever. Number 5, Kent, England, the Garden of England, and the graveyard of lost spirits. Americans know Kent as the picture-perfect English countryside. Rolling green fields, quiet villages, white cliffs, and historic castles. But beneath that calm, storybook exterior lies one of the most paranormally active regions in the United Kingdom. Kent's nickname is the Garden of England, but locals whisper a second name, the Graveyard of England. That's because Kent has been the battleground of countless historical invasions: Romans, Vikings, Normans, World War II air raids, and each left behind something darker than ruins. The most feared location here is Pluckley, officially recognized as the most haunted village in Britain. Imagine driving down a quiet road, surrounded by ancient oak trees, fog rolling across the fields, and a silence so thick it feels heavy. That's Pluckley after sundown. This tiny village holds at least 12 reported ghosts, each with their own terrifying story. The Screaming Man, a brickworker who felt his death in the 18th century. His agonizing screams are still heard echoing through the brickworks at night. Some visitors say the sound is so real, they've dialed emergency services thinking someone was being murdered. The Highwayman, a ghostly figure in a tricorn hat, seen leaning against a tree along a narrow road. He was stabbed to death by soldiers centuries ago. Modern drivers report seeing him in their headlights, only for him to walk through their car. The Red Lady, a woman dressed in blood-red robes carrying a rose. She wanders the graveyard, searching for something she never found in life. Some say she stares directly at visitors before fading away. Even the air in Pluckley feels wrong. Electronic devices die instantly. Car engines stall. Photographs blur into static. And locals say the village becomes soullessly cold after midnight, even in summer. But Kent has a deeper horror lurking in its dark forests. The Daring Woods, also known as the Screaming Woods. Thousands of trees, tightly packed, forming a natural labyrinth. People who enter describe hearing screams in the distance, children crying, footsteps running toward them, whispers circling around the trees. Some visitors never found their way back out. Others return confused, with no memory of where they've been. One hiker who got lost claimed he kept hearing someone call his name. Not shouting, calling, soft, close, intimate. When he turned around, no one was there, but he felt something warm breathe against the back of his neck. Kent may look peaceful on a postcard, but when night falls, the Garden of England becomes a place where the past wakes up and follows you home. Number 4. Greater London, a city where history never stays dead. London needs no introduction. Ancient streets, world-famous landmarks, royal palaces, and a history deeper than nearly any American city can imagine. But with nearly 2,000 years of human life comes something else. Hauntings that never ended. London is often described as a city built on its own ghosts, and nowhere proves that more than its most infamous location. The Tower of London. Thick stone walls, iron gates, dark chambers where prisoners awaited execution for centuries. This fortress was a place of torture, betrayal, political murder, and royal bloodshed. And according to guards, tourists, and historians, the souls trapped inside never left. The most famous spirit here is Anne Boleyn, the beheaded queen of King Henry VIII. Visitors report seeing her ghost walking silently through the chapel, sometimes with her head, sometimes without it. Late-night security guards have seen her form float through walls or stand at windows, staring into the courtyard where she was executed. But she's not alone. The two princes, the young sons of King Edward IV, believed to have been murdered in the tower. People claim they've seen two small figures holding hands, walking through the halls. When approached, they vanish into the stone. The White Lady, a pale figure seen drifting along the battlements. Visitors report smelling a strong perfume when she's near, and feeling a sudden wave of sadness so deep it's hard to breathe. The beheaded specter. Witnesses have reported a ghostly knight carrying his own head. Even the crows avoid certain parts of the tower. And according to long-standing tradition, if the ravens ever leave the Tower of London, the kingdom will fall. But the tower is just one part of London's supernatural map. The London Underground, especially Aldwych Station. Imagine an empty subway station. Dusty platforms, dead escalators, lights flickering overhead. Aldwych Station was closed in 1994, but something down there still rides the trains. Night shift workers report seeing a woman in a Victorian dress walking across the tracks. Security cameras pick up shadows where no person stands. Maintenance staff have heard someone crying in the tunnels, but the sound echoes from everywhere at once. One worker said he saw a woman at the end of the platform holding a handkerchief. When he shouted that the station was closed, she disappeared. Not instantly. She faded, like smoke pulled into darkness. Then there's London's most cursed house, 50 Berkeley Square. From the outside, it looks like a normal townhouse in an upscale neighborhood. But step inside, and the atmosphere feels suffocating. The upper floor is said to contain something non-human. Visitors have reported claw marks in the walls, shadows crawling across the ceiling, a presence that fills the room with pure terror. People losing consciousness for no medical reason. In the 1800s, a sailor stayed in the room overnight and was found dead the next morning, eyes wide open, hands frozen in a defensive position. Even today, most paranormal investigators refuse to enter the top floor. London isn't just haunted, it's layered. Every building, every alley, every underground tunnel sits on top of centuries of violence, tragedy, plague, and war. And the deeper you explore London, the more you realize you're never alone. Number 3, Yorkshire, England's dark heart of moors, murder, and the spirits that refuse to rest. Yorkshire, the largest county in England, is a place where nature itself feels haunted. Vast moorlands stretch endlessly under a gray sky. Ancient abbeys stand in ruins, and old mining towns sit frozen in time. It's the part of England that Americans often compare to New England in the US. Beautiful, quiet, but filled with the unsettling feeling that something is watching. At night, the Yorkshire moors become a true nightmare. Miles of barren landscape, mist that curls across the ground, wind that sounds like someone whispering right above your ear. Even locals admit they don't like driving across the moors after sunset. One of the most infamous stories comes from Whitby Abbey, a cliffside ruin made famous in Bram Stoker's Dracula. It's here that Stoker first imagined the Count arriving in England. And ironically, Whitby has its own real hauntings. Visitors report seeing a ghostly nun, known as the White Lady, drifting between the shattered stone walls. She appears at twilight, her robes fluttering as if caught in a wind no one else can feel. Some tourists have tried to approach her, but she simply walks toward a cliff and disappears into the night air. Then there's the Black Monk of Pontefract, one of the most violent hauntings in UK history. The haunting took place at 30 East Drive and became so uncontrollable that the family living there had to flee. The ghost was blamed for dragging people across the floor, slapping and scratching residents, throwing furniture, turning rooms ice cold instantly, appearing as a tall, hooded figure with hollow eyes. Even professional investigators said it felt like a presence that enjoyed causing fear. Today, brave or foolish visitors stay overnight for paranormal tours. Most don't last the full night, but Yorkshire has an even older terror: the ghosts of the moors. Hikers and drivers report phantom figures walking along the moors at night. People in old-fashioned clothing, carrying lanterns, wandering aimlessly. When approached, they fade into the fog. Some drivers have slammed their brakes, thinking a real person was crossing the road, only for the figure to vanish on impact. Yorkshire feels like a place that remembers everything. Every traveler, every tragedy, every spirit. And at night, it feels like the land itself wakes up to watch. Number 2, Scotland, castles of blood, Highland spirits, and the land where legends are alive. If the UK were a horror movie, Scotland would be the final boss. Ancient, brutal, wild. Scotland is a place where the supernatural isn't just believed, it's expected. With landscapes older than recorded history and castles built on battlefields, Scotland is often described as a country with more ghosts than people. And the most haunted of all is Edinburgh, the capital. Edinburgh Castle, sitting high on a volcanic rock, this fortress has witnessed centuries of war, torture chambers, dungeon deaths, executions, sieges, plague outbreaks. Visitors report seeing shadow soldiers marching through walls, hearing bagpipes playing in the dead of night, and feeling sudden icy chills while standing in the sun. One of the most famous spirits is the headless drummer, a ghost who appears only when disaster is about to strike the castle. His drum beats echo through the courtyard long before anyone sees him. But the real horror lies beneath Edinburgh. The Edinburgh Vaults. Imagine dark stone tunnels under the city. Pitch-black chambers once used by murderers, smugglers, illegal taverns, and abandoned plague victims. These vaults were sealed for over a century, and when reopened, investigators described the atmosphere as hostile and angry. People who enter the vaults often report hands grabbing their ankles, shadows creeping across the ceiling, sudden drops in temperature, voices whispering behind them, overwhelming dread, as if something is standing inches from their face. One vault is so active that people faint the moment they step inside. But Scotland's most terrifying haunting lies far north in the Highlands. The Ghost Piper of Dunvegan. Legend tells of a piper who vanished while exploring underground caves. Only his music was heard, growing fainter and fainter until it stopped completely. To this day, people walking along the cliffs report hearing a lone bagpipe playing under the ground. No player, no body, just music echoing from beneath the earth. Then there's the Glencoe Massacre, one of Scotland's darkest historical events. Over 30 members of the MacDonald clan were murdered in their sleep. On cold winter nights, hikers say they hear screams echoing across the valley. Some describe seeing figures crawling across the snow, reaching out for help that never comes. Scotland isn't just haunted, it's alive with the past. Every shadow feels like a story. Every wind carries a voice. Every castle hides a tragedy. Number 1, Wales, the land of mist, magic, and the dead who walk among the living. Wales often feels like an entirely different world. Mountains wrapped in fog, lakes that look bottomless, forests older than the first pyramids. If America has native folklore, Wales has Celtic folklore, deep, ancient, and terrifyingly real. That's why Wales holds our number 1 spot, because here, the line between the living and the dead is almost non-existent. The most haunted location in Wales is Pentree y Fan, a 5,000-year-old megalithic site older than Stonehenge. Visitors reported seeing tall shadow figures walking behind the stones, ghostly children running through the grass, bright orbs floating in the air, a woman dressed in ancient Celtic clothing, appearing briefly before disappearing into the stones. Locals believe the site is a gateway, a thin point between worlds, but the haunting grows darker in Powys, home to the Skirrid Mountain Inn, the oldest pub in Wales, over 1,000 years old. The inn once served as a courthouse where more than 180 criminals were executed. Their bodies were left hanging from a beam inside the pub. Today, that beam is still there. Visitors say the inn is never quiet, Footsteps walk overhead at 3 a.m., glasses clink by themselves, a rope-shaped mark sometimes appears on people's necks after sleeping in room 1. Doors slam violently in empty hallways. Staff refuse to go into certain rooms alone, claiming the air feels too heavy to breathe. But Wales's, the most chilling haunting lies in the countryside around Bala Lake. The Grey Lady of Bala, a spectral woman seen standing on the water at dawn, perfectly still, perfectly silent. Witnesses say she appears as if floating, her dress waving beneath her, her face pale. When people call out, she slowly turns her head and disappears like mist before the first ray of sunlight touches the lake. Wales is a land of ghosts, legends, and ancient forces that feel older than time. That's why it's the most haunted state in the UK. A place where the supernatural doesn't hide, it breathes. The United Kingdom may look peaceful, but beneath the calm villages, castle ruins, and misty hills lies another world. A world made of tragedies that never faded, battles that left echoes in the air, and souls who never found their way out. From the storm-beaten cliffs of Cornwall to the shadowed forests of Gloucestershire, from Yorkshire's endless moors to Scotland's ancient vaults and the ghost-soaked mountains of Wales, one truth connects them all. The UK is not just haunted, it's alive with the dead. And every place we explored tonight carries a story you can still feel. Not in your ears, but in your bones. If you enjoyed this journey through the 10 haunted states of the UK, hit that like button, subscribe, and comment which country I should explore next. Because the world is full of haunted maps, and we've only just started turning the pages. Until next time, stay curious, stay brave, and never ignore the feeling that someone is standing